Hello and welcome. As a hotel AI expert, it's my pleasure to welcome all of you, the students of Europe Hotel School, to this part of your online learning journey. Today, we're diving deep into a truly foundational document in our industry, one that's crucial but often misunderstood. We're talking about the Hotel Management Agreement.
You know, the best way to really wrap your head around this document is to think of it like a constitution. Seriously. Just like a country has a constitution that lays out all the fundamental laws, the partnership between a hotel owner and their operator has the Hotel Management Agreement, or the HMA. It spells out all the rules, all the rights, all the expectations. It truly is the absolute bedrock of their entire relationship.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll explore why we call it the hotel's constitution. Then, we'll get into the nitty-gritty and decode the performance test. That's a big one. After that, we'll look at the rules of the road for the day-to-day partnership. And finally, we'll talk about how this document becomes a real roadmap to profitability. All right, let's jump right in.
Okay, first up, the hotel's constitution. Let's really dig into why this agreement is the absolute foundation of the whole partnership.
So, what are we really talking about here? Well, the HMA is the legal contract that spells out everything, and I mean everything. If you're an owner's representative, this is probably the single most important document you'll have. It defines who does what, who's responsible for what, and, this is absolutely critical, it defines exactly how success is going to be measured.
And here's why getting it right is so important. We're not talking about short-term deals here. These agreements, they are long-term commitments. We're often looking at 20, sometimes even 30 years. Think about that for a second. That means the stakes are incredibly high from the moment that ink dries.
Okay, that long-term nature brings us perfectly to our next section, decoding the performance test. This is really the heart of the HMA, you know? It's the key mechanism designed to protect the owner's investment and to make sure the operator is actually delivering the results they promised.
So, it really begs the question, right? How can an owner measure performance in a way that's fair and totally objective? Well, that's what the HMA is for. It lays out a very specific two-part test to do just that. And here they are. The performance test isn't just a single metric. It's a dual evaluation. You have two steps. First, there's the RevPAR index test, and second, the gross operating profit, or GOP test. One looks at how well you're grabbing revenue from the market, and the other looks at your actual profitability. Let's break down each one.
First up is the RevPAR index test. Now, as you know, RevPAR, revenue per available room, is a core metric in our industry. The index is pretty straightforward. It compares your hotel's RevPAR against a hand-picked set of your direct competitors. If you score 100, it means you're getting your fair share of the market. Simple as that. But if you're below 100, you're losing ground. This is all about measuring that top-line performance.
But look, bringing in revenue is only half the battle, isn't it? The hotel actually has to be profitable. And that's exactly where the second part of the test comes in, gross operating profit, or GOP. This number shows you the hotel's revenue after you've paid for all the day-to-day operational expenses. It's a straight-up measure of your bottom-line performance. And let me tell you, this is where a lot of the owner-operator debates happen, arguing over what counts as an operational cost. And that's precisely why getting it clearly defined in the HMA is so incredibly important. So when you put them together, these two tests give you the complete picture. It's like having a check on both your offense and your defense. The RevPAR index, that's your offense. It tells you if you're out there winning business and generating revenue. The GOP test, that's your defense. It tells you if you're managing your costs efficiently to actually turn that revenue into profit. You absolutely need both to be working well for a healthy operation.
All right, so what's the big so what here? What happens if the operator actually fails? Well, the consequences are huge, but the conditions are very specific. An operator has to fail both tests, the RevPAR test and the GOP test, and they have to fail them for 2 consecutive years. If, and only if that happens, the owner usually gets the right to terminate the HMA. This is the owner's ultimate escape hatch, their biggest protection against the partnership that just isn't working.
Okay, let's move on. Beyond just measuring performance, the HMA also lays out what I like to call the rules of the road. These are the covenants and clauses that really govern the day-to-day operations and, importantly, give you leverage if and when disagreements pop up.
These rules are officially known as operating covenants, and they cover pretty much everything. We're talking about how the hotel is maintained, how the brand standards are rolled out, how the whole place is run day to day.
Really, their job is to make sure the operator is taking care of the owner's asset and upholding its quality and reputation.
This right here, this quote perfectly captures the tightrope walk that an owner's rep has to do every single day. On one side, you have to make sure the operator isn't just spending the owner's money on shiny new brand initiatives that don't really deliver a return. But on the other side, you have to make sure the owner doesn't starve the hotel of the capital it needs to stay competitive and well-maintained. It's a constant push and pull, a constant negotiation.
Now, a well-crafted HMA will have more than one way to end the agreement. You need to know these other key termination clauses inside and out. There's termination for cause, which could be triggered by something serious like fraud. There's termination upon sale, which is pretty self-explanatory. And of course, there's the termination for underperformance that we just went through. Knowing exactly what these triggers are, well, that's what gives an owner's rep real leverage when they're in a dispute.
All right, let's bring this all home in our final section. I want us to reframe how we think about this document. The HMA shouldn't just be some defensive legal agreement that sits in a drawer collecting dust. It's so much more than that. It is a powerful, strategic tool.
See, at the end of the day, the goal isn't to be looking for ways to terminate the agreement. That's a last resort. The real goal is to build a successful, profitable, and long-lasting partnership. And the HMA, when you truly understand it and use it the right way, is the roadmap that guides both the owner and the operator down that path toward mutual success and mutual profitability.
So, as you continue your journey here at Europe Hotel School, I want to leave you with a question to really think about. As you become the future leaders of this industry, how are you going to use this roadmap? How will you use your understanding of this complex agreement, not just to protect an asset, but to actively build a better partnership, to anticipate challenges before they happen, and to steer everyone involved towards shared long-term success? That's the real challenge and the real opportunity.